Someone felt you today. Not abstractly, but specifically. Your face crossed their mind without warning, interrupted their morning, arrived uninvited into a moment that had nothing to do with you, and they could not push it back out. You may have sensed it before you could name it. A sudden heaviness that wasn't yours, an inexplicable urge to check your phone for a name you've been trying not to think about, that particular weight that settles in your chest when an energy you recognize brushes up against your field without announcement. This is not coincidence. This is not your mind recycling old pain for no reason. Something ignited on April 10th, and what you are feeling right now is the shockwave of that ignition landing in your body before it has the chance to land in words. This is Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries. Not a slow, gentle cosmic suggestion, a detonation, suppressed desire forced through a wall that was always too thin to hold it. If you are here, something in you already knew something was moving, because part of you received the signal before the rest of you had language for it. Like, subscribe, and drop the word Awakened in the comments right now. Not for an algorithm, but because claiming readiness for what this energy is transmitting is itself an act of alignment. Let that word be your declaration that you are ready to receive what April 10 is making undeniable. To understand what is actually moving in their energy right now, you need to understand what Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries does, not as metaphor, but as a specific, mechanical, and unavoidable force. Mars in Aries is raw. It is hunger before it becomes thought. It is pursuit stripped of politeness, desire before it becomes strategy, urgency that predates reason. It does not negotiate, it does not qualify, it does not wait for a more appropriate moment. Mars in Aries acts from the gut, from the primal register, from somewhere older than articulation. Saturn in Aries is the opposite architecture entirely. It is fear wearing the costume of control. Saturn in Aries is the part of a person that wants something desperately and builds a wall between themselves and that wanting. Because somewhere in their history, desire became dangerous. Desire led to loss or humiliation or the unbearable exposure of needing something they could not have. So Saturn in Aries does not stop wanting. It disciplines the wanting. It creates distance. It performs indifference. It constructs the appearance of having moved on as a survival mechanism, not a truth. When Mars and Saturn conjunct in the same degree of the same sign, the wall does not gradually soften. It shatters. The suppression becomes explosive. Every ounce of desire that Saturn kept compressed behind armor is now armed with Mars's urgency, and the combination creates something that has no precedent in measured, carefully managed emotional life. You may have felt the early signals even before you understood them. A strange anger from them that had no clean target, emotional flatness that suddenly cracked into an intensity they couldn't contain. The odd sensation of being watched, even through silence, even through a screen, even across distance. A flood of memories arriving in their mind at an hour with no business being awake, carrying a weight that felt like emergency rather than nostalgia. This is what happens when Mars breaks through Saturn's armor. Violent, necessary, freeing, and completely impossible to stop once it begins. Here is what this means specifically about the person who went quiet on you. Their withdrawal was never what it looked like. You may have read their silence as indifference, as evidence that you mattered less than you believed, as the slow erasure of something that had felt irreplaceable. It was not that. Their silence was a dam. Their stepping back was Saturn at its most desperate. Fear of wanting you too much, disguised as not wanting you at all. Every step back they took was Mars building pressure underneath the surface. Every month of restraint was another layer of compression. If you paid close attention, the wall was never airtight. The way they asked about your life through someone else rather than directly. The social media orbit without actual contact, the strange flicker of intensity when they passed through your proximity, followed immediately by a rapid retreat back into performance. Not indifference, fear wearing indifference's face. And this opens the first real question beneath everything. Why would someone fight the thing they want most? Why would a person actively suppress a desire they have never actually released? The answer is Saturn's oldest lesson, and it cuts deeper than most people are willing to sit with. Saturn taught them that desire equals danger, not as a philosophy, as a felt experience, a body memory, a reflex that moves faster than conscious choice. Have you ever been so afraid of wanting something that you pretended you didn't want it? That is Saturn. And it is what they have been living inside every single day they maintained that distance from you. They never stopped wanting you. They stopped believing they deserved you. Or worse, stopped believing they could survive wanting you and losing you again. So retroactive jealousy began to form beneath the surface, a possessiveness that arrived after the connection had technically ended, backfilling the loss with a territorial urgency that had no current permission to express itself. This is what separates what they are feeling from ordinary jealousy. They have been experiencing the loss of something they never officially claimed, the anger of someone whose territory is being trespassed upon when they never fully declared the territory was theirs. Under Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries, this temporal collapse, past desire and present urgency fusing into one unbearable now, removes Saturn's delay entirely. The avoidant filter, the pause between feeling and acting, the careful management of what surfaces, Mars in Aries burns through all of it. Thought becomes urge, becomes action, bypassing every defense mechanism Saturn spent years constructing. The 72-hour peak window around April 10th is the compression point, the moment where everything they have been containing gets squeezed into a singular, inescapable pressure that has only one direction to move, and that direction is toward you. If you have been sensing irrational energy, anger arriving without clean cause, territorial behavior surfacing near people in your life, a sudden random contact after weeks of calculated silence, an intensity breaking through the casual surface they have been maintaining, this is not your projection. This is the conjunction activating, protective rage beginning to move through whatever channels it can find, and they cannot fully explain it to themselves. The rage feels real but has no clean justification. The jealousy feels primal, but they have no technical claim. This is the specific hallmark of this energy. The emotion is enormous, and the permission structure is absent, which makes the pressure unbearable and the behavior erratic. Not weakness to feel this, the only honest thing left in them. What does protective rage actually look like in a person who has built their entire survival strategy around avoidant control? It does not arrive as a declaration. It does not look like anything you rehearsed. You have been visible to them, moving forward, living your life, appearing in spaces where they can observe without being observed, and that visibility has been shattering the Saturn wall from the outside. Their jealousy is not about who you might be spending time with. It is about who they failed to be for you. The anger is self-directed first and projected outward as possessiveness second, because it is easier to feel territorial about external threats than to sit inside the self-accusation of having let you go. Pay attention if you have experienced hot and cold from them. Moments of sudden warmth that disappear back into distance without explanation, leaving you to question what just happened. Orbiting without reaching out, reacting to your presence in peripheral digital spaces, surfacing where you surface, being present just enough to register without making actual contact. Testing your reactions with calculated casualness. Dropping a reference to something adjacent to your shared history, watching for your response, measuring whether the door is still open. This is protective rage in its avoidant disguise. Not chasing you, but unable to stop calculating your location. Not reaching out, but counting internally exactly how long it has been. Their anger, their silence, their return, all the same thing wearing different faces. Here is what this changes in the dynamic between you. They are no longer running from you. They are running from the image of you belonging to someone else, and those are completely different directions of motion. The power in this situation was always yours, not because you performed strength, but because you are the point of gravity they cannot stop orienting around, even when they tell themselves they have. Protective rage behaviors, once decoded, reveal a clear pattern. Disguised reach-outs framed as casual questions, manufacturing proximity through shared spaces or mutual people, sudden and apparently inexplicable interest in areas of your life they had previously pretended not to track. What happens when they finally crack under this energy? It will not arrive with a prepared speech. It arrives as urgency, a message at an unexpected hour, a sudden, unannounced presence, an intensity that breaks through the casual surface without warning. If you have felt their name resurfacing unexpectedly, through conversations that shouldn't have led there, through coincidences that feel statistically improbable, through that specific frequency that only carries the signal of one person, this is not random. Their energy arrives before their words, and something in you is already registering it, which is precisely why you are here. Before they reach you, something inside you needs to shift too. Because you have been carrying your own version of this armor. You have had your own Saturn, the restraint that looked like dignity while underneath it was the raw fact of still wanting, still feeling the pull, still keeping a door open in the private space of your own chest where no one could see it. And alongside the wanting, there has been anger, valid, real, and largely unacknowledged. Anger at what was taken from you without explanation. Anger at the silence that asked you to perform acceptance without ever offering you a reason for the distance. Anger that coexists with wanting in a way that makes no clean narrative sense, and that you may have judged yourself for feeling. What if the rage you have been feeling about this is not grief, but recognition? What if your own protective rage is not a dysfunction to overcome, but the most honest signal in your body, confirming that what existed between you was real, is real, and will not quietly dissolve, no matter how long either of you performs otherwise? You are allowed to want them back and be furious at them simultaneously. You are allowed to feel possessive of a connection you technically released. That is not contradiction. That is Mars and Saturn living inside you too. And this conjunction is asking both of you to release Saturn's armor at the same time, from different sides of the same wall. Not because you owe vulnerability, because you deserve to stop carrying the weight of a restraint that was never actually yours to maintain. And now, the moment everything converges. When they crack, it arrives raw, probably unannounced, possibly at an inconvenient hour, almost certainly without the eloquence you imagined. Because Mars in Aries does not craft a message, it sends one. There is a threshold under every powerful cosmic event where containment becomes more painful than release. You will feel the quality of contact shift. Time behaves differently in those moments. Words carry weight that ordinary conversation does not carry. The air between you thickens with everything that was never said, but was always felt. The universe is not waiting anymore. It is delivering. And what is heading toward you is not disorder. It is a higher order correcting what remained in an imperfect state for too long. It may come as a direct message, or as an unexpected phone call with a voice slightly less controlled than usual, or as a presence that materializes in your space with the thinly veiled excuse of something incidental. The form varies. The inevitability does not. But the deepest revelation here is not about what they do. It is about who you became while you waited. The clarity that sharpened in the silence, the discernment that developed through confusion, the quiet internal power you built while performing patience that was, in truth, a kind of refinement. They did not leave because you were not enough. You were too much for the version of themselves they were living as, too real, too activating, too present for the fear-managed self that Saturn had constructed. Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries means they can no longer be that smaller version in your presence. The compression has reached its limit. The protective rage has held every shape it could hold: silence, distance, orbit, test, anger. And it has no more shapes left. The rage was always love with nowhere to go. April 10th just gave it somewhere. You are not waiting for a sign. You are the reason for a jealousy they cannot explain to themselves, and that makes you gravitational. You are not chasing. You are the thing that cannot be unchased. You are not anxious. You are certain in the specific way that certainty arrives not as an emotion, but as a settling of something that had been held in suspension. Their jealousy is not your anxiety. It is your confirmation. You may feel even now a quieting in your chest, something releasing from tension into stillness, not emptiness, but the stillness of something that has finished becoming and arrived. You are not the same person who found this video. Something in you has been named. Something in them has been activated. Neither of those things can be undone. If this reached you, if any of it landed with the specific weight of recognition rather than information, then seal it before you close this. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and drop the word "protected" in the comments below. Not to serve a metric, but because claiming Mars Saturn's force as your personal shield, declaring in the space where their energy is also moving that you are protected rather than pursued, is its own act of power. Rituals do not require ceremony. They require intention made visible. Choosing. Protected. Right now is choosing to receive what this energy is transmitting without dissolving into anxiety about how it arrives. The April 10th window is open. Click the next video on your screen. What comes next continues this. Nothing ends here.